PG&E, the California utility, out with earnings. Slight miss on the top and bottom line, but a lot of questions about fire season, when and how to combat the California wildfire season. Fortunately, we're joined by PG&E's CEO Patti Poppe here in our San Francisco bureau. Welcome. Let's reflect on that quarter just gone.
Yeah, so we don't give quarterly guidance, and so it's in line with our plan. External estimates aside, we're on track for the year. We look good for the year. We have a big general rate case that will be determined as the year progresses, ideally here in the third quarter. And with that general rate case, we have a truing up mechanism in the regulatory construct in California, so those revenues will be recognized for the full year after we get the rate case order. So that is very much expected in the third quarter.
The rate case order is interesting in the context of you as a CEO. A lot of people that I talk to say that you're very conscious of the California consumer. How will higher rates impact them, and what you can do to make access to the utility more affordable?
We are operating under something we call our simple and affordable model. We very much care about the consumers in California. What the way the model works is, first of all, the costs embedded in a customer's bill need to be adding value for those customers. And so first and foremost, over 85% of our general rate case ask is safety, resilience, reliability related, and our customers are demanding that. And what we're doing inside the company, we've launched a lean operating system. So we're addressing and eliminating waste, improving our processes so we can have better customer experience at a lower cost. That's what we're working on.
If we zoom out a little, as the CEO of the state's biggest utility, what's your read on the California consumer, the health of the consumer? Do you see any distress show up in your customer base?
I think there's a range of customers in our service area. We serve basically from Oregon down to Bakersfield, so 2/3 of the state, 16 million citizens are served by PG&E. We see a range. There are some customers who are more energy intensive in the Central Valley and have lower incomes. There are less energy intensive customers in the Bay Area who have higher incomes. So we're working on making sure we get that cost allocation right and make sure that energy is affordable, clean, resilient, and reliable for everyone.
The question the investors have is a reinstatement of a dividend. What criteria or factors would need to transpire for you to be able to reinstate a dividend by the third quarter?
A couple things. One, we had an agreement coming out of our plan of reorganization post-bankruptcy that we would not reinstate a dividend until we had $6.2 billion of adjusted earnings. So we expect to achieve that, but that will be linked to the outcome of our general rate case. And so the general rate case is a pretty significant gating function, though we're pretty excited about what we've asked for because we know our customers are very much interested in us doing that work that's embedded in that case, and that'll allow us then to reinstate the dividend. The balance, I'll just say real quickly, the dividend will very likely be very small. The intent is not to have a big dividend, but just to turn one on so that funds and capital can flow that are dividend required. More importantly, we want to deploy every dollar of capital that we have to making our system safer, faster. That's definitely top of mind for us.
It's also top of mind for people when they think about PG&E. So I'm a resident of the state of California, but the world's been watching in some sense for a few years now because of previous events, PG&E's role in several fires that took place in the state. You are saying that you see a delay to the start of the wildfire season this year round. What's the data that's telling you that wildfire season will come later in the year?
Well, I'm seeing two things. One, the atmospheric rivers, as you will remember, being in California, we had some pretty extraordinary weather the first quarter of this year. That left a lot of moisture in the ground. And that also, though, so that you could argue that delayed fire season. But what we're trying to convey today is our readiness posture for wildfire season whenever it comes. It can, we want to be prepared 365 days a year. we announced on our call today a series of status updates, if you will, to where we've been since 2017 and all of the mitigations that we have put in place since 2017, and it's quite remarkable. I think your viewers would be very excited to know about the technology that underpins our wildfire science at PG&E, how much advancement how far we've come in the implementation of those technologies, and just getting to the numbers. Last year, we had a 68% reduction in ignitions as a result of our layers of protection, resulting in a 99% reduction in acres burned in one of the very driest years that we had on record, very tough conditions. So heading into this year, we know we have that technology armed and able to address whatever the conditions are. So we're less and less concerned about when wildfire season starts, and more focused on making sure we are prepared and ready with all of the technology that protects the people of California.
So PG&E's technology competence is basically split into two parts, right? You have the hardware side of things and the software side, largely artificial intelligence based. What is it that PG&E does with AI to either prevent or plan to mitigate the impacts of wildfires?
You know, Ed, I think you'd be quite impressed if you could see the wildfire science that underpins the activation of the technology. The hardware is activated by this software. We have the data system. We've actually divided up our entire service area, 2/3 of the state of California, into 2-kilometer polygons, we call them. And we have readings because of our weather stations, our high definition cameras that are using artificial intelligence to know the difference between fog and smoke, that are identifying the fuel moisture levels, the humidity, the wind speed, the temperatures, the grass levels, any open maintenance tags in that 2-kilometer block, any tree that's within strike distance of the line in that 2-kilometer block. And we have technology then that we can activate when the conditions are such that a catastrophic wildfire is possible.
So we're talking about spread modeling, essentially, trying to predict the path that a fire would take if it were to occur.
Exactly. So we use the spread modeling with this artificial intelligence engine to then activate our hardware on any given day of the year. We have an operations center that's monitoring conditions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and they monitor those real-time indicators and then use that AI model to predict risk. And then we activate our hardening system. We've put in layers of protection, including our 10,000-mile undergrounding plan, which is sort of old school construction, but it works. It's very risk mitigating, combined with our technology platform to be prepared every single day to prevent the next catastrophic wildfire.
Do you have to make further investment? I mean, you talked about it being old school, putting the cabling underground, but that's how it's worked in the past, right? Above ground cables, through a number of factors contributing to the cause of a fire. Where else do you have to invest and continue to grow your tech play?
Yeah, well, the tech play in undergrounding is actually quite exciting. We use those models and all of that AI to determine what's the next best mile to bury. We get lots of calls. People want us to bury the lines. So a lot of people would like us to bury their lines.
Strategic about it.
Yes, but we have to use that risk modeling to determine the best miles. And then we're deploying all sorts of new technology to make it way less old school. We actually demoed at an investor event in San Ramon maybe a month or so ago, what we call at-grade undergrounding, utilizing a new steel form with a polymer insert with conduit where we run the conductor and can bury the lines much less deeply, right at surface, and it takes a diamond cutter to cut through this. So there's infrastructure technology that we're deploying, and of course we're deploying all sorts of tools to make sure that every minute we spend doing work, we're doing it in a smarter way. So we're getting smarter every single day, and that will lower the unit cost of doing that undergrounding, which is the heart of our infrastructure rebuild plan.
Away from the management of wildfires, there's a lot of questions about the utility modernizing in other ways. You welcomed Elon Musk to your Innovation Summit this week. Why was it important to have Elon Musk there?
Well, Tesla is both an important customer and an important technology partner for us. We've deployed something called the virtual power plant. So you may remember September 6th last year, we had a heat event here in California. Yes. We had record electricity demand. We were able to deploy that virtual power plant, which leverages certainly technology and the Tesla technology platform combined with PG&E. we were able to dispatch people's batteries, their power walls in their garages to the grid. And we see great potential in bidirectional charging of vehicles. So people think about the vehicles on the road today. Today in our service area, so again, Oregon to Bakersfield, we have 9,000 megawatts of capacity in the vehicles on the road today, not some long-term forecast. 9,000 megawatts is the equivalent of 5 of our Diablo Canyon power plants on the road today that if activated and if enabled, we could dispatch back to the grid those mini power plants. I say we put the power where the people are. These can be mobile power generating units that optimize using the right technologies. We can have a modernized grid that diminishes the peak, utilizes energy in the middle of the day when we have excess because of lots of solar on the system. We can actually lower the unit cost of energy as we decarbonize the economy. That's possible with the right technology underpinning this transformation. Tesla's an important partner for us in that.
There's the pace of the transformation as well. I think what Mr. Musk said in your conversation with him is that power demand's going to triple, and he wants to see utilities speed up what they're doing, if be it electrification or on the heating side of the equation. Do you agree with him that perhaps the pace of what you could be doing can be greater? And how do you work with Tesla to make that happen?
Well, first, I will acknowledge that at his Investor Day, he gave a shout out to PG&E for going faster. So I was happy about that. And he's given us kudos for that in the past. But I think everybody has to go faster. All of us have to go faster because the seriousness of the severe climate conditions warrant all of us reimagining what we do. And doing it with technology partners is going to be essential to PG&E keeping pace, and frankly, we like to think that we can set the pace by getting others to come with us, which is why we hosted that Innovation Summit this week.